Hello everyone, this is a video on my scraps patchwork project, and if you've been following me on Instagram for a little while you would have seen these, not in this format necessarily, come up on my feed. I will show you how they look, what the process they've gone through. So, and I want to show you this because I want to possibly encourage, even if it's just one of you, that it's possible to change your mind, it's possible to rip up your work, rip pages out, rework something. So I had them in here, and it would be one of these here. I would paint similar to this, or just rough paint a background, stick my scraps on there, and then on this side I would do a sort of botanical type of thing. So I had roses on the other one, but it's all been cut up now. So I had these entire page of these beautiful roses that I did, that took me quite some time to do, and I've cut them up, so you know it's not gone to waste. It's you know, they'll end up somewhere. So then I was super happy when I did this, but what really made me happy was really the actual patchwork. I loved doing it so much, but then a few weeks back I was looking at this, and there's just something about this that wasn't making me happy, wasn't making me drawing me to it. So last week I changed it over into this smaller book. I thought if I make it smaller, that would work. So that might work. So I did just a border background, and then placed it in the cut these out, stuck them on there, and then I wasn't quite sure what to do on the other side. I thought, do I want to do botanicals again? Do I want to do something else? But what I did know was I wanted a really plain background. So I ended up covering these pages with a lot of paint, and it's one of the few times I don't really use gesso in my work, but I do own it. And it just doesn't make me happy. I don't like to use more products than necessary. So partly, you know, being frugal, being environmentally mindful, but also just in process. I like things, it's not so much necessarily efficient, but I don't know what the word for it is, but just doing things that are unnecessary. I just think it's like, why am I doing this? So if this was a mixed media journal, a mixed media page, and I covered that in gesso or paint and was doing all these other layers, that's fine. But all I wanted was just to get rid of the background, and the idea of just painting this book just to get rid of a background just seemed counterintuitive to me. So that wasn't making me happy. What did make me, what I was attracted to, was this, the idea of this here, and I like this really simple border and having something there. So I thought, this isn't working, and just ripped them out. Okay, so then came along, I've got this journal sitting around not being used. It has this lovely tissuey border. It's called Pink Pig. It's just a UK brand, but it's just a journal. It's just a square journal. Pages are maybe 120 grams, 140 grams maybe. So nothing special about them. I like the spiral. Yes, I had this idea of spiral. I like the spiral separation, which is not normally how I would journal. I like the square format. I love square journals, and that's it. I just wanted a plain background, and then this came out, and then side by side ended up happening. So that's how that's turned out. Okay, so rip up your work, take pages out, don't be precious about it in that way, and know that you can always give yourself that permission to rework things. Okay, so the patchwork, the scraps patchwork. So that came about stemming from my scraps diary. So if you've seen my previous video or follow me on Instagram, you know all about my scraps diary. And I wanted to take some of the most wonderful aspects of this, which was simplicity, stress-free, very little thinking of creativity, creative but not so creative that I have to want, you know, that I'm wanting it to look special in a certain way, and all of that. I love that simplicity. I love the stress-free. So I wanted to retain my scraps diary intact as it was, super simple, grids, scraps, unadorned, all of that, non-collagey, but then that inspired me to this project. So once again, I'm using the idea of simplicity by I'm not overlapping. I mean, I get tiny little overlaps, but you know, I'm not aiming to overlap. I'm actually aiming not to overlap. And I don't know how well this is beautiful sunshine coming in, but it does create a lot of shadows. Hopefully you can see this okay. And if you can just pick it up, that these are all square, four-sided shapes in the main. I've got these really odd little bits that come out, but they're rectangles and they're squares, and none of them are really overlapping. So that gives me this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stress-free ability to outlet. It gives me this wonderful stress-free outlet to express something, put something down, you know, glue paper, glue and rip and cut. We love all that, without thinking too much about it. A lot of this stems from my textile art that I did some 12 years ago, and the idea of stitching pieces together. I always loved the piecework. I didn't do actual, you know, quilting or anything like that. It was very art based, but pieces coming together, disparate pieces coming together sometimes, it really interests me, and the edges of things, and coming from my scraps diary was this idea of things, you know, pieces of paper that we don't normally see as beautiful, or that were made for a particular use, you know, if it's just, you know, brushing your paint off on it and that sort of thing. And that led to this idea of, I mean, this uses any and all of my scraps, but I do tend towards choosing more of the what would be considered the ugly papers, the failures, the less pretty ones, you know, the less collagey ones. I mean, you know, you can see here, this is a jelly print. This is very pretty. It's not like I don't include those, but all those things that you might throw away is the ones I love the most for this project, because that's the meaning behind it for me. So on the surface, you know, if you want to do something like this, you can do it just completely with the idea of just using up your scraps and having fun with that. On that little deeper level for me, he has using these you know, unwanted scraps, if you like, let's call them that, is about, reflects the, perhaps what we consider unwanted thoughts and emotions within ourselves. So in my art practice, I very much lean towards beauty. Beauty makes me happy. Creating journal pages that, and you know, beauty is subjective, but creating pages that are, to me, uplifting, whether it's composition or color choice. You know, pink is making me so happy these days, and I used to actually hate pink. There was a time in my life, you know, many years ago, that I hated pink. I can't get enough of it right now. So I lean into that. I lean into the uplifting, the encouraging, the beauty. But all parts of us deserve a voice. All parts of us deserve expression. And the parts of me that are vulnerable, I've shared a tiny bit of that on Instagram through some of my child faces and experiences. And this one here was about the challenging emotions, the challenging thoughts, the anything from something big and angsty to small irritations. To be honest, it's more about small things that come out in this. It's not super intense. It could be just that conversation that was a little bit tense with somebody, and that you're replaying in your mind and you just want to get out, or something like that, you know. So this is why it extends from the scraps diary, where I'm giving myself a little bit of space to journal. It can be just a quick thought. And you know, to me, art is doesn't have to be, and even if you don't think of it that way, it is healing, because any expression is healing. Anything that expresses emotions and thoughts rather than repressing them or keeping them contained or close is healthy. And that's the amazing part of art, that even if you're not thinking that way, even if you just do art because it's fun and nothing else, or you just want to do a pretty page, you're still expressing yourself. And I think human beings were just created to be, you know, we are creative beings inherently, and expressing ourselves is just essential. And by creative, I mean that in the widest way, broadest way possible. Okay, so I don't want to get too off topic there, but so yeah, so waste papers, ugly papers, you know, putting them together like this give voice to any other aspect of myself. And it's important to, you know, when I look at this, I don't look at this with any sort of negativity. I don't look at this and think, oh, that's that thing that I felt and whatever, because just looking at it straight on, it's just, to me, it's quite pretty. It's quite lovely to look at. And that's key, because it's not weakness, it's not negativity, it's empowering. To give yourself a voice is empowering. To give your what people call negative, I don't like the words negative and positive, it's too simplistic, but to give yourself your challenging thoughts and emotions a voice is very empowering. So to me, this is a very empowering project. It's a very empowering practice. Okay, but like I said, you can't just make pretty pages. Okay, so if you're still here, I'm going to now actually create my next one, and I'll take you through the process. If you want to join me, that would be really lovely. Okay, so I've not bothered to show this, doing this, because it's so simple. So this is a really thin piece of A4 copy paper and photocopy paper, and I've just done a size roughly to the other one. So I'm not being a stickler for the exact size, but I want it to fit nicely with a nice big border in there. So I've just done that, and then I've chosen a colour, and today's is sort of orangey yellow, and I've just painted little areas. Now you could just paint it all over, which is how I used to do it when it was in that large A4 book. Just completely cover the page and then place things, and then where the colour landed, which also meant that, you know, when things didn't quite join up, what you could see through was these colours. So that was quite nice, and it made it easier for placing things. I'm trying this out, and if it doesn't work, I might go back to just doing a whole page. But I like the idea of going with the patchwork, beginning that with the colour, so putting it in certain areas in a sort of abstracty composition sort of way, what's pleasing to me, and then working around that. So either way works. So that's the substrate, if you like. You could work directly into your book and just there's no reason, I mean, that's what I did initially, but I sort of like this. It sits just off the page, which I really liked, and I like the idea of cutting it out easily. I don't know, I'm just going with it at the moment, and it just feels right to do it this way. Okay, so scraps. So I have drawers full of collage folder. Basically, I have drawers full of large papers that are going to be used in my journals. But I also have these little bamboo trays, and as scraps get smaller and smaller, I start to separate some of them, and I separate them into, I mean, this is mostly pinks, but it's generally warm colours, and this is mostly blues, but generally cool colours. And this is just fun. I just love looking at it. I love how it looks. Just visually, it just really speaks to me. But it's also really useful if I especially want a particular colour. But I also have drawers full of, well, maybe not drawers, but I have containers full of just a mixture with things that I haven't yet organised, and that's fun, just to pick stuff out and just see what comes out, which is how I did my patchwork. So so these are mostly prettier papers, so I'm less likely to choose these, but I'm going to have a look through just to see. So here I have these are sort of stamp printy out type things. This one is colourful, orangey, bright colours. This is, what is this? Book pages. So this has text or numbers or that sort of thing. So sometimes I've got text that I want to use, and other times it's painted, or it might be printed on, stamped on, that sort of thing. This one is neutral. So I've got blacks, I've got like craft paper type things, you know, black and whites, just a few pieces like that. This little one has tiny. So as they get tinier and I cut them up, you know, they can just easily get lost if you don't put them somewhere, if you just have them in a drawer. So as they're getting tinier and tinier, well, that can go in there. As they get tiny and tiny, I pop them in here, and they can be used as well. Okay, so let's have a look. So this is sort of a reject. It could be a background, but in general, it has the stamp didn't come out, didn't work well. So I like that. Possibly that one as well. Didn't quite come out. I don't like these this sort of peachy colour that has happened in these and the stamping. I did these so long ago, and I'm not crazy about them at all, so that's great. That's great to add. That's just like not a very attractive colour. I was colour mixing, and I got the colour in the end, but that was sort of brushing my paint off. That is, I'm not entirely sure how we'll use that, so that will be good. Almost everything here is quite lovely and I would use. Just might find something. Yeah, that's just reject. That's a bit of a mess. That's nothing. Neither here nor there. That's tiny. Oh, that's a good mess. I don't like that either. Well, that's a mess. Okay, that's enough. I've got a lot of pinks there. I'm not necessarily going to use all of these. This is just what I'm finding. That's definitely a reject. That's a bit rejecty. I've got one of these circles, so that's going to be too many circles. Oh, that's a bit. Yeah, that was something I didn't like. Oh, this one bugs me so much. I think I might take that off and just use that. So as you can see, I keep scraps that I don't necessarily like. I don't mean that I just rubbish and I think, what could I possibly do with that? But I mean, because I mean that's just splatter, but I love the colour of blue there. So, but you just never know. I don't. So if it's very muddy and yeah, these were just too stark. Didn't quite make it for me. That's just neither here nor there. Okay, and then I've got tons of these little ones. These are good for filling up spaces, so I'll keep that on the side. Okay, so differently to my scraps diary, I don't have ripped edges. I might have one or two ripped edges, but mostly I quite like that whole thing. Mostly I will have really straight edges, and there's just some sort of energy behind that. I haven't thought about it, so I don't know. If I think about it, what does that mean? Because I love torn edges usually, so maybe it's, I don't know, containing the emotions. No, I don't really want to contain them. Maybe it is because they're more, I wouldn't say chaotic emotions, but they're emotions that could become overwhelming or too much. And maybe keeping things contained in some sort of way is, it's sort of, you know, I'm giving voice to my emotion, and yet at the same time I'm not allowing it to take over me. You know, giving voice to, you know, troubling thoughts, but not saying, you know, you have full control and You know, you're not in the driving seat. I'm giving you a voice, but let's not get out of hand here. You know, I'm just thinking out loud as I'm doing this with you. So it's just a thought. So now I'm just preparing my papers, and I was asked about the type of papers I use by somebody, and I'm not sure if I've got this right, but if what you meant is, well, all I can tell you is that a lot of these are underpapers. So, and my underpaper is sort of 120 gram off-white sugar paper, also known as construction paper. It's just that cheap paper that you can use in schools just for children to paint on. So some of the times I'll use a piece of, so this is watercolor paper, so it's actually heavy and thick, and sometimes it might be a little bit, oh, this is super thin. This is from a book, and the pages are just, they tear like, I mean, it's only slightly stronger than tissue paper. So yeah, so the weight of the paper varies, and it really honestly doesn't matter. Okay, so this process I find really meditative. I really, as much as I love ripping paper, which I enjoyed with my scraps diary, I also find the process of just gathering these little pieces. So you can see how easy that was, and it's lovely going through your stash and going through your bits and pieces and just picking out stuff. You know, it's the unwanted. You know, find the unwanted, and give them a place to be, and that's a wonderful thing to do. And then going through this process of trimming and neatening up, especially if you've gone through that, especially if it's that day, the experience, and the experience was irritating or anything like that, then yeah, finding, I might use the whole thing, finding that peace within by, you know, just quietly going through and bringing some order to the chaos. Oh, I like sort of like that. So I like to have a combination of small pieces, large pieces, different colours, a few circular pieces, but I tend to keep it to four-sided shapes. As I'm going through them, I'm, you know, getting to know each one individually and seeing, you know, how attracted I am to it, to go into this, into the journal. I like this, I do doing this. It does make it more difficult if your shapes start getting irregular, because then you start getting gaps and things, but that's okay too. Okay, so I've allowed this one scrappy bit I couldn't tell you why, I just have. So I don't know yet if I have enough, but I've got this box of little tiny pieces that could fill in. Okay, so now I start to put them together, and again, you know, it's this idea of keeping things really simple, really, we're not trying to create a beautiful piece of artwork. We're just putting paper down, and the enjoyment comes from placement in a way that is pleasing to you, but not in a way that you're trying to create art at all. So I decided that this is where I'm going to journal, so I'm going to leave that free. This has got the hole, so this will be nice to show that, possibly. There, that there. I think I've got more here than I'll need, so I'm placing them loosely first, just to have a rough idea of where they might go. I've got a lot of pinks, so I want another colour. So this could just change completely. I need to put this in here because I dislike it so much. I dislike it so much that it fits perfectly for my angsty. I actually like this black almost nothingness more than I like this. How crazy is that? So I might have that there. This is interesting, sort of, yeah. This one kept irritating me, so that's got to go there. Because, you know, that's what I'm choosing. I'm choosing by, you know, these unwanted pieces. I'm not choosing what's beautiful. But that doesn't mean I'm rejecting what's beautiful as well, you know? It's just a balance. I'm not saying, oh no, this is pretty, I'm not going to include that. I'm just being mindful of not being led down that road of beauty, of making pretty art or something, you know. I want to keep reminding myself that no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm expressing something else, and I don't have in mind a specific event or something, but I have noticed while I've been doing this with you that I've used the word irritation more often than anything else. So I know what that's pertaining to. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm aware, and I know the thing that I'm irritated about. And it's something that, you know, frustration and irritation often comes from, well, actually, they're two different emotions, but there's a lack of control. When something is out of your control, that has gone awry. So something has occurred, an event has occurred in our family that's caused a lot of trouble, and it's been a sort of a domino effect of one thing after the other. When you think it's one thing's done and another thing's happened, and it's been so frustrating because we've not been able to really confront the person who sort of set this off, or we sort of have, not really, it was ineffectual. Anyway, so that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that, and that really deserves a voice. I have journaled it a little bit, but it deserves a voice. So this yellow is actually quite happy, but I can also see it as in your face, and yeah, and there's a feeling of that, of just something just being in our face and having to do it. I might close that off there, although I like that accidental smudge. So as you can see, I may not be married to this. I might still switch it around, but as you can see, I've just placed it, and I've done this almost without thinking. I've been talking to you and just intuitively moving things about, and I've allowed this yellow to peek through, and you can see it sort of ties it in somewhat together. But I'm going to keep playing with it, and I'll see what I'll see when I'm finished. So there's a tiny bit of overlap, like this little one, because I want to close that hole. I may have to put something there, but mostly those pieces are doing the job. I just need a little something there. I want to cover the white bits, and there's a lot of just plain colour there. So I do like the idea of something. This is quite strong. Maybe that black ought to come back in. So I do like to, so even though I'm doing things intuitively, not overthinking it, when I get to this stage, I do start to make some decisions. And remember, I'm not creating a piece of art, and it doesn't have to be beautiful or anything like that, but I'm still being creative. I'm not just sticking things down. You know, that's my scraps diary. This one is a little bit more. So I do make some more decisions in this. So if I've got too much just flat colour, I might want to move that and add pattern. If I've got too much pattern, I might want to add flat colour. If I've got too much pink, I might want blue, and that sort of thing. But again, it has to be really, really stress-free. You have to find your comfort level, but if you have a tendency to overthink, you have a tendency to worry too much about how this is going to look in the end, then I would really encourage you to give yourself that permission of like just sticking it down. Try that, because what happens if I stuck all this down now, all glued down, and then I looked down and I thought, oh, I don't like this. You know, what's happened? Well, what's happened is that I've now created a new possibility for collage. I could have all that stuck down, and I can rip those pieces up, and they will be a new piece of something else. They will come into something else. They may even go into another patchwork. They may go into a piece of art. Who knows? So there is no such thing in failure in mixed media art journaling, as far as I'm concerned. It all can become something. At the very least, the process was something. You learned something from it. But honestly, I do believe that the actual physical result you can use again. So if you do tend to overthink, I would encourage you to do the opposite and just to place things down. I'm somewhere in the middle. I can overthink things, but I also like working and can work intuitively. So I give myself the permission to let it go before, if I start to overthink, if I start too much. It's not even so much for me, the overthinking. For me, it will be when I start to worry too much about how the end result's going to be, then I stop and I just glue things down. So honestly, I'm going, you know, but I allow myself to enjoy this and make something of it, and think, oh, I think I'll like black there, or I think I'll like more pink here, or something else. Yeah, so it's finding that sweet spot for yourself. And honestly, this, I feel I could do a lot more with this, but I'm going to practice what I preach, and I'm going to actually just glue this down as it is and not give it a second more thought. Okay, so welcome back. And I say that because this was very successful in that I forgot that I was doing this for the camera. I was just really into it and doing it, and I was thinking, how much I disliked this one when I was putting it down. I think, oh my gosh, I really dislike this so much, so badly, and how nondescript, and cutting off the ugliest bit of that bit of paper, and how irritating that was. And I was thinking about my irritation, and but then that's dissipated in the practice of just cutting and, you know, trimming and gluing and putting down, and then that became the meditation, just placing it down, and you know, that irritation just begins to go. And so now just take a pen and I'll write it down in a thought. Okay. Sometimes I like to add a word. In this case, I've decided on a number that had a bit more meaning. You can see the beginning of my underpaper for this one, how it begins, just stamping off my stamps. Okay, so the scraps are done, any wording or text is done, and now I will add the faux stitching. And I have a couple of stamps, these lovely rubber band stamps. They do lots of lovely stamps. If you follow Suzanne's channel as well, she does lots of lovely art. What am I looking for? So I use my distress. So this one I keep mostly for the outside. Don't know where this one is from, but if you know, Google stitch stamps, there's a few out there. Okay, so this is what gets it looking like a patchwork. Well, it is a patchwork, but as in stitch patchwork. So then I try to overlap the scraps as if they are stitched together. And this is really simple and quite meditative as well. It's nothing difficult. And if you have more than one type of stitch stamp, you can perhaps vary. Don't want them on the edges yet. Vary where you put them. You know, have a what am I trying to say? Have a variety. You know, have the variety. Hold on, this is. I've done this too. Okay, that's enough of that one. I've mounted these rubber stamps from Rubber Dance and put them on some thick foam. Is that what it's called? Yes, foam. They're still flexible. That's what you like. I find this one really hard to overlap properly. You can't see it, but it doesn't matter because that's just part of the fun of this, isn't it? It's just doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that. So this is great. I love this one because it's zigzag, which looks really effective. I also have she has a second one here which I like to use as well. It doesn't for me look very stitchy, but it does add a little bit of extra interest. So you have a variety of stamps. So what I do is I actually go to every single edge, and every edge has this fake stitching going on. This adds a lot of grunginess as well, which is nice. Yeah, so every single edge is covered. I think I'll do this one. So nothing perfect, but I like it to look as if every part of it has been stitched together. Obviously just in a very loose way. I'm not trying to create this, you know, mega illusion. It's just very fun, very cathartic for me. Okay, so that's done for now, and now I cut it out. Okay, there we are. How cool is that looking already? As you can see, you don't need to cover the whole thing with glue, just get your edges really. Place it equidistant. Okay, so now I'll grab my favourite stamp and I do those edges. And this is where it gets, I struggle to overlap. That's not too bad. I don't do it all the way with this one. I'll do it here and there. And I'm very happy for this to be messy. Okay, that's enough for that one. Use this little one. Not covering the whole thing, but there is a sense of, you know, it's been stitched down to the page. And there you have it. How super easy is that? And I feel like I've exercised some demon, some negativity. It's like, you know what, that was the past. It's happened. It was irritating. It was frustrating. It was a lot of trouble. But it's done, and this has come out of it. And how happy I am with this. You know, super stress-free. Scraps have got a new home. My challenging thoughts and emotions have had an expression, and the result is what is to me a beautiful journal. Thank you so much for joining me on this. I hope this has inspired you, or at least, very least, you've enjoyed watching and had a moment of relaxation.